I want to acknowledge the role of a team of people that cared for my father these last few years. As Sonki and Deepak Uncle mentioned, towards the end of 2007, my father had a pretty large stroke. And there's the first 69 years of his life, and then there's the last 13 years of his life, which was living with the stroke and with the diminished capacity that the stroke left him with. And then finally, there's the last 2.5 years of his life as he had cancer. And there's a team of people that looked after him. As a son, I want to acknowledge the people and express my deepest gratitude for looking after my father these last few years. So here goes. And I know this list is not complete. I know I would have missed out really important people. That doesn't mean that they are not top of mind for me, but it has been 15 days since he's passed, or 16 days since he's passed. It still feels raw. It feels hard. Part of the last many weeks feels like a blur. So, my sincere apologies for missing out anybody that I may. I'd like to start by thanking the team of doctors in Sir Gangaram Hospital, the legendary Dr. Simran Nandi, who is an incredible personality. In many ways, he reminds me of my cousin Neil Dada. What Neil Dada is to history, I kind of see Dr. Simran Nandi in the field of medicine, just prolific and still very loving and caring. And we were fortunate after my father was diagnosed with cancer that Dr. Nandi took over his care in Gangaram Hospital. In March of 2018, he performed the surgery on him, and since then has been looking after him till very recently. And last week, I called him and I informed him about the passing of my father. It was one of my father's high points to meet with Dr. Nandi, and it would give him a lot of pleasure to see Dr. Nandi speak to my mother in Bengali. It would lift him up no end, even towards the later stages of his life. Dr. Sham Agarwal, his oncologist, who has cared for him for the last 2.5 years. There's a very special person, Dr. Sanjay Bajpai from Portia, the nursing company that has been working with us and taking care of my father for the last couple of years. Dr. Sanjay Bajpai was on video as my father was being given CPR right towards the end and as he passed. Even in these days of COVID, we were really fortunate to have a critical care doctor visit my father 3 times, Dr. Rakesh Sharma, who took meticulous notes, was hugely generous with his time. And during the last few weeks, which were extraordinarily hard for all of us, took great care of him. My friend Guinea is on the call right now. One of the first things Guinea did was connect me to his brother, Dr. Chiranjeev Singh, here in Connecticut. We call him Veer. Veer has been generous with his advice and helping out with my father's treatment. We were also fortunate that we could take my father to the Tibetan Center in Majnu Katila, where the very famous Dr. Naima, who runs that center, took care of my father for the last couple of years. And then I'd like to mention a very special personality that Preeti and I got to meet and since then became a guiding angel for us. 2.5 years ago, when my father was admitted to St. Stephen's Hospital, we suddenly got a call in the night in February. He had been admitted for a round of checkups, and then we got a call from my cousins telling us that he just had a stroke. So Preeti and I immediately wrapped up got on the first flight we could, which was a few hours later. It was a direct flight, Air India flight from New York to Delhi. And Preeti is always very gregarious and social, and she immediately befriended the gentleman that was sitting next to us. Turns out that he was a surgeon in Ithaca, and he had, like us, booked that flight as an emergency because his father-in-law was in his last stages. And Dr. Sanjeev Vora and Preeti and I bonded immediately. Sanjeev and I had numerous Amrut single malts. There's nothing like bonding over a glass of whiskey or a few glasses of whiskey. And it turns out that Dr. Sanjeev Vora's father, Dr. B.K. Vora, had been the chairperson and the board of trustees of Tar Gangaram Hospital and was also a renowned urologist. So when my father got diagnosed with cancer a few days later, since then till Sanjeev has been guiding his treatment, and we've been consulting him all along. And he's become a dear, dear friend for us. And so I just wanted to call out the special role that he's played. I think in the room with my mother is another very special person, Papa's nurse for the last 2.5 years, Amit. Amit is still continuing to come to us. And Amit, Papa was, as you can imagine, just as he didn't take kindly to cops telling him about his scooter that had stalled, he, of course, didn't take kindly to any nurse telling him what to do. But Amit managed to have a very special place in his heart, and Papa eventually became very obedient to Amit, and Amit is still there today. Papa had very special affection for another person. As you mentioned, Deepak uncle, he used to care a lot about young people and education of young people. And there's a boy, Suraj, who has literally grown up in our house. He was being taught maths and English by my father till the point my father had a stroke. And even towards the end, my father would keep asking about Suraj. So I just wanted to acknowledge the big role that Suraj has had in taking care of my father. Sitting in the room with my mother right now is the beautiful, caring team. Puranji is there. Puranji has been taking care of our family for many years. There is nobody like him in cooking, and my father used to relish Puranji's food. Every time I'd ask him how's your food, and he's like, whatever Puranji cooks is just great. Puranji and his two sons, Kapil and Hemu, who've been there every single day through the last 7 years, taking care of my father and my mother. My friends in Delhi, you know who you are. Pooja, Rajiv and Dipali, Ginny and Chuzi, Varun and Devika, all of you, I have called upon you for the last many years for emotional support, for practical support, for distraction, for Rajiv and Dipali for sending cars at short notice when they were needed, for arranging things whenever they were needed. My friend Sonali in Bangalore, who has visited my parents every Diwali for the last many years, and then over the past many weeks, arranged for food and protein and liquid food when my father could no longer eat it. My friend Vidushi, who got us in touch with the Cuddles Foundation, Nikita from Cuddles Foundation, who people spoke to and guided his food intake when he could no longer eat normally. And then another very special friend who was a colleague and then became such a special friend to us, Ganeshan, and how much he has helped us all through this time. We had the opportunity to celebrate my parents' 50th anniversary on March 1. And Lalit was the driver that took him there. And Lalit has been a special driver. He's been coming many times, thanks to Rajiv and Dipali. And he on the day of the 50th anniversary, just on his own, without even telling us, decorated the car beautifully with rose petals and had welcome signs saying "Welcome, sir" and "Welcome, madam" for my parents. And I just wanted to call up Lalit as well. And no medical discussion about my father can be complete without mentioning the loving presence from the time I was a little kid of Dr. Sushila Anthony. My mother has been speaking to Sushila Auntie all throughout. I don't think Sushila Auntie could join on Zoom today, but she was a huge presence, and I'm really gratified that Sushila Auntie and Anthony Uncle could actually visit my father 2 days before he passed away. And finally, on this call, we have another doctor, Dr. Rakesh Kumar, my brother-in-law, who we've been consulting all through this time. And so just all the people that have taken care of my father from a medical standpoint, from a nursing standpoint, from just a physical standpoint, and providing this emotional support. As Papa passes, I also want to take this opportunity to remember some of his other friends that could not be with us today. The reason they're not here is because my father and Dr. Sharad Desai and Dr. Srinivasan and Mr. Ganpati Rao, his oldest friends, both of whose daughters are here on this call today. They're all right now unavailable for this call because they're playing chess or they're playing Scrabble, and they're having a whale of a time wherever they are up there. And so I just wanted to remember some of his dear friends. There are two other people in our family who left too soon, and I want to remember them. My eldest, the eldest cousin in my generation, Rakesh Nagar, Rakesh Dada, who passed away in 2015. The same time, the same year as my beloved sister Munu Didi passed away in 2015 as well. They left us too soon. But they were very dear to my father, so I did want to mention that. And finally, there are two other elders from his generation, his two elder brothers. My elder Tauji, Mr. Rameshwar Bhatnagar, and my Chote Tauji, Mr. Rajeshwar Bhatnagar. And I can just picture all three of them arguing with each other right now, and arguing about all kinds of things, about arrangements, about how things should be in the family. And I'm sure now they're reunited in their arguments up there as well. And then I'd like to talk about Papa's final journey. As you all know, the unconceivable happened. And the unconceivable was from the time I was born till the time I studied. And for the 26 years that I've been working, I could have never imagined a time that I would not be able to be with my parents at a time like this. But that did happen. And I was unable to be there for my father's journey. I was unable to be there in person. Antim Yatra is a beautiful organization that was created by a couple. Preeti has spoken to beautiful, wonderful lady, Namrata, that Preeti had reached out to in the eventuality would need their help. And they were just amazing. They just came and helped us take my father to the final journey. This is the time of COVID. It's the time of social distancing. It's the time of physical distancing. And one of my biggest fears and biggest worries was who would be there with my mother when the time came. And the answer came from my beautiful, loving cousins and my nephews and nieces in Tagore Park. You all know who you are. Tatu Dada, Papi Didi. Papi Didi has been coming and staying with Mummy over the last few days. Ranjit Da, Tino Da, Keshav Da, Pablo, Jilly, Pintu, Neha's husband Adityan, Nishant, all of whom were there. And again, I may have missed out a few people because that day is a blur for me, and my sincere apologies if I missed out a few people. My dearest friend Varun came over from Gurgaon. I couldn't be there, but Varun, you could be there. And then what I have learned through that significant day is just love. I just experienced love that I couldn't have imagined. And within minutes of my father passing, they all came together and they took care of my mother. They, they took care of everything, took my father for his final journey. All through my growing years, when I would be naughty or I would be unfocused or I would be lazy, my mother would immediately tell me that would send me off to Tagore Park to be with the three that I especially called my crazy cousins, Shatuda, Gorada, and Munudidi, so I could learn from them. And even in this moment, they taught me unconditional love. And I'm never ever going to be able to forget Gorada doing what I was meant to do to send my father onwards. It's a memory that's just embedded in my mind forever. After he passed, my family continued to surround us with love. I especially want to call out Rekha Didi and Rakesh Bhai Sahab. Rekha Didi organized on the fourth day a havan at her own house. She brought the family together for a Zoom call where we all came together and we reminisced. She organized for a puja in Badrinath, and on the 13th day, she and Rakesh Paisab went personally to an old age home and with a great deal of love cooked some of the favorite food that my father didn't get to eat because of his restrictions in the final few days and served it to them. My wonderful family in Australia, Vivek Dada organized a prayer meeting and all my cousins and my nephews and nieces joined together. It was at 3 a.m. my time, and I couldn't join. I was really tired. But I got to see the pictures and I got to see the wonderful, wonderful occasion that took place. And today, for all of you to come together as we celebrate his wonderful life, it's gratitude that I'll never, never be able to experience or express adequately.